Good morning, everybody. Orange A here with another War of the Visions video, and today we're going to be talking about VOLKE, somebody who a lot of people have been saving for a little bit since we saw her drop in JP. She's a really good tank. We're going to go through her kit. You'll see how she's got a lot of the tools that you're going to want in a modern tank, and before about a week ago, or heck, before a few days ago, she was one of the most hyped units along with Ashe and Mont that was coming out for a while. And then the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children trailer dropped in JP, and we saw that there's a new version of Sephiroth coming out, there's a new version of Cloud coming out, we're getting another free Tifa, and the bad guy whose name has escaped my mind for a minute from that movie is also coming out. And you know there's no way that those characters are going to be bad, especially Sephiroth and Cloud. And you know, because it's a limited collaboration, you're not gonna be able to pick them up later as easily as even you might be able to pick up, you know, one of these Warrior of the Crystal type units. Now, VOLKE is somebody who is, and we'll throw this on screen, she's somebody who's a 70 cost unit. In this current iteration of the Warriors of the Crystal, when we've gotten 70 cost units, they've been purchasable for like 50-ish bucks. Again, depending on where you live, how much it costs. But would you be willing to pick up like a pack H to buy her, or the equivalent of a pack H to buy her? Some people will, and that will at least help them save their Visior for Advent Children or whatever else they're saving for down the road. At 70 cost, she's a beast. Like, she is absolutely one of those 70 cost characters that's going to outperform her cost. But if you're tight on Visior and tight on money, and you love Final Fantasy VII, which I feel like I just described at least significant significant portion of the player base, I would probably just suggest saving. I don't know, it's going to be tough. Anyway, let's go through her kit. Let's see if I can make you a believer in her. Let's go. Okay, her Trust Master, the Rillish Ribbon, or whatever it's going to be called in Global, is actually really good. Now, the stat line on it doesn't have agility, so I don't love that. But the buff is great. 60 critical evade and 25 AoE resist for yourself on a 2-use buff. This makes this something that somebody who's a tank, who just wants another like single target buff to give themselves, 25 AoE resist, nothing to shake your head at. And critical evasion, hey, not getting crit is nice too. So it's not one of the most overpowered TMRs in the game, but especially if you're a newer player, she's one of your first tanks, I could see you getting some run out of this TMR. A lot of people use Joom's TMR, for example, back in the day. The buff on it was just defense and spirit, which is nowhere near as good as this, but it had agility where this TMR does not. So we'll see. I do think her TMR is decent. Let's continue. Okay, her master ability. She gets the elemental group buff. Then she gets 10% agility and 5% magic. She is someone who scales with magic as a tank. We've seen a lot of those in the game before. Roth, for example, is a magic scaling tank. So no surprise there. 5% magic does feel like, come on, 5% magic, can we give her a little more than that? But 10% agility will help her out a lot. Her dream enhancement is single target resist 15. Very nice there. Debuff effect weakening 20, which is okay. And then a sphere armor skill upgrade. Now, if we look at her stats really briefly, I want to look at her agility. So if you get her to 140, she's sitting at 64 agility. That is medium to slow. It's not like up near 70 or something like that where it's insanely fast, but it's not like down at 59 or 60, which is ridiculously slow. Her resists are all good except for pierce. She is literally like 20%, 10%, 15%, 15% in all of these resists, which is spear being -10. So, you know, some piercing units, especially some water piercing units, could really work her over a little bit. She has a nice little bit of HP. Nothing else crazy going on here with her stats, just that 64 agility and those resists are something worth looking at on a tank. Now, when we get to her skills, this is where her kit really shines, in my opinion. Crimson Defense Tactics. This is a support ability that's going to give her 12 defense, 5 initial aggro, debuff effect weakening 15. You can see she's going to be really hard to debuff, right? Like, she's going to be a character that's just very difficult for debuffs to do anything to her. Then she gets one of those, you know, depending on the area you are away from her, she gets that like barrier of up to a 15% damage reduction for physical and magical damage. This is one of those like modern mechanics in the game. Squall was kind of the first one to bring one of these out, where, hey, where you hit them from with your attack, whether it be physical or magical, she will mitigate some of that damage. It's really effective. Like, this is a really strong thing in the game. It's nice to see it on a tank. Now, You're going to run Crimson defense tactics all of the time. What else might you run? Well, you do have Grimoire Keeper for defense and spirit penetration if you want to make her tankier and do a little more damage. Never sleep on move jump +1, especially on a tank who you want like closing the gap, or on certain maps where you just need it. You can give her more magic, but you could also give her more HP and magic, which is better, or you could give her spirit and ice resistance, which I like this one a little bit too. I think this will be a mix. I think we'll see a lot of Crimson defense tactics, like 100%, a lot of it. Then I think we'll see some Abyss of the Books. I think we'll see some Blessings of the Ice Spirit, and then Wings of Flame. I think we'll see that move jump sometimes as well. Her counter moves, she has a boosted chance counter move. I really like it. Chance to counter slash and magic damage, so it's only 2 types, but a 70% proc rate means you'll see it pop a lot, and then it'll reduce damage taken by 30%. Love that on a tank. She does have hide and resist, which actually drops aggro at a 30% clip while giving her AoE resist for that attack. I mean, the AoE resist is nice. The percent chance of proccing is decent, but you don't want to drop aggro on your tank. That's kind of awkward. And then she has a 30% damage reduction for all damage, but it only procs 20% of the time. You're just going to run instant shield, right? Slash magic damage is all over the place. Might as well have a 70% chance to reduce that a little bit. Again, depending on like what kind of anti-counter trust stones or something your opponents are running. Okay, let's look at her main job. So she does have a cheat move, only costs 6, or she can use it 6 times for 14 AP. It is a piercing attack. It decreases agility by 20% for the target, low modifier, and you can see her damage scales off of magic, dex, agility, and luck. So this is a decent little move. It's short-ish range, which will, again, with tanks, you do oftentimes want them closing the gap on their enemy. Now for her, you might run her in sort of like a death ball kind of squad with the way she could provide like a barrier of resistance to her team. More on that here in just a second, but I do like this move, help her get in close range and debuff the enemy a little bit. Okay, Sphere Armor. Let's look at the upgraded version. This thing, it does a lot. So first of all, it gives her a 20% physical damage reduction shield for herself. Then it reduces physical and magic damage 15 to 30% in the same kind of vein. Like it says larger the attack area size. It's the same thing as this. So here's up to 15% damage reduction depending on like what you're getting hit with and where you're getting hit with it from. And then you can add up to another 30% to that. So this is a buff she's going to want to have on herself all of the time. You're going to want this cast while this is up, stacked with her support ability. She's going to take a lot less damage. Then it also gives her a not translated effect. And so I don't know what that is, but wait, was that one of the ones? Oh, no, I'm saying that I can't remember. Was that one of the moves that was in her kit right here? This is re-raise on self. No, this is her other one. So I guess we just don't know what this one is yet, or at least I don't know what it is. But the damage reduction by itself is going to be something you want. And there we go. And it re-raise remove ceiling. She also gives herself the ability to turn off re-raise. It's a self buff, so it's not a group buff. And in fact, in her main job, she does not have a group buff. So you'll have to look somewhere else for that if you want one. She has another attack right here. This is a short range, small AoE attack with 4 uses, 165% damage mod. It decreases attack for the target, and then interestingly decreases defense and spirit penetration for the target, so makes them worse at penetrating defense and spirit. I like that. I think that's a nice little thing for a tank to have, especially at 70 cost. Then she has Promise with Brother, which is an upgrade to an unquenchable flame. This is the one they showed off in the game. It's a 200% chance to give herself re-raise, so she'll give herself re-raise. She gets HP recovery, which she drops below 50%, and then when friendly unit is within range, automatically give them single target resistance if they are targeted with an attack, and spirit up if they are targeted with attack. It also gives her 8 more aggro. Let's scroll down a little bit and look at this. So here's the range. Here's her little like barrier that she's putting out to help her allies. If an ally is this close to her and they are targeted with an attack, she will give them spirit and single target resist. That's kind of nice. She's a walking single target resist spirit buff as long as you stay close to her. And that's kind of what I was talking about, where you might want to like death ball with her a little bit to give your whole team a little bit more mitigation. I love it. And it also gives her re-raise and an HP recovery. You're going to want to cast both of her self buffs. She is a very selfish buffer. She doesn't provide anything to her group from her main job, but both of her buffs are nice. She has 2 more attacks. One of them is a single target attack that pierces and increases her single target resist by 25 after she she does it. Okay, that's a good reason to use that one. And then she has one of those like square shaped moves that targets the spot 3 in front of her and then hits in a square to the sides and back of it. You see it on the screen. She could use that 3 times. This dispels courage on the target, so she has courage dispel in her main job. Okay, sub jobs. If you want to run her main job sub job, she does have a paralyzing attack in there and a group buff that gives magic up for allies and spirit penetration up for allies. Not a terrible buff, but not a tanky buff either. Grimoire Keeper, on the other hand, has 2 very tank buffs. One of them gives her protect, defense debuff resistance, and AP down on attack. So aggressive falling upon hit for self, decrease AP for 20 for 3 turns if she has protect. Don't sleep on how useful this is. The ability of your tank to like do as much annoying stuff to the enemy team as possible is nice. Her hitting the enemy and knocking AP off them is useful, but I think you want to cast both of her other solo buffs first. Then you also have in Grimoire Keeper Spell of Shield. This is clutch for 2 reasons. One, it lets her move to her team. It's a group buff. It gives your group 15 defense. Okay, that's kind of whatever. It gives her a 7,500 HP shield. This shield is different than this shield, right? This is just damage reduction 20% shield. This is an HP barrier. They stack, or at least I'm on 99% sure they stack. So you could do this plus the other one. It's gonna make her very, very hard to kill by physical units. Awesome, right? Like, what a 70 cost kit that we have here. Then if you really want to, you can run Kodadama Wielder, I guess maybe for the 100% hit chances in there. Okay, and then her limit break is a 2 target selector single target attack that increases pierce attack penetration by on her for 30, does 200% damage mod, and gives her regenerate. So this is one of her hardest hitting moves, which will be useful for getting that regenerate online. She does a lot. Like, maybe her biggest weakness is her lack of a really strong group buff in her main kit, but as a tank, I mean, what more do you want from a 70 cost tank? She is going to be one of those cost limited stars that we see in the game for a really long time, in my opinion. Now, here's her spear. You can build this Spear of Burning. This has a decent crit rate, 128 crit, and you're only giving up about 60 magic to get there. I don't hate that. A lot of people will still probably build the magic modifier one anyway. A condition for her, you get single target resist 8, reaction block rate 30, and increased spirit 10 when you crit for herself. So that's another reason to maybe build this crit one, to keep yourself stacking that spirit a little bit, or at least keep this 1-turn spirit buff online. And it gives pierce attack 15 for anybody who uses it. If I was breaking her down, right, like, what's a weakness that she has? Well, outside of this right here, she does not have a way of applying AoE resistance to herself. If you wear her TMR, she all of a sudden does have a way of applying AoE resist to herself, but she seems to lean more into the single target resist. Still, with all of her shields and, like, you know, area-based damage reduction modifiers that she's got going around, I think she's going to be plenty hard to kill and somebody who would be worth investing in a little bit if you are thinking about it. Now, I will mention, for like the 4th or 5th time this video, Advent Children collab soon. I don't know how excited you guys are, but I'm going to do a whole video on like what I think about the collaboration. I have heard everything under the sun about like the motivations for this. Basically all the people who come out every time a company does something and say this is only for money. I like to remind those people sometimes that, like, you're right, but like, duh. Anyway, I got a whole reaction video of that I want to do, but I kind of want to wait till I see those characters' kits before I give my reaction. Unless I'm just starving for content, then I'll do it early and then you know, do something else later. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. That's VOLKE's preview. Stay strong if you're trying to stay strong. If you've been saving for Pole, and if she comes out and you can afford to just buy her little pack if we have one, do that. And thank you for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.